Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. This is the Week in Games, where we talk about some things that happen every week, except now it's more like bi-weekly, but I'm belaboring the point. Anyway, not much else new in my life than work, so let's get right to the news. Okay, well, some of you noticed in the past that I talked about a game called Renegade by Ricky Royal, which was kind of a cyber puzzle-ish, fight the machine kind of game. And some new expansions are already out and probably already out of stock by now. So if you wanted to get in on the Renegade train, I would suggest for the future upcoming expansions, because that game is just absolutely begging for more content, definitely keep your eye out for Renegade expansions. And next, there's a Kickstarter out for Football Highlights 2052. Now, I really like Baseball Highlights 2045. I think that it is probably my favorite sports game because it does a lot of things to distill a sports experience down to something entertaining. It's not just a simulation. It's actually definitely on the high list. And so base football highlights says right up my alley since I'm big into football right now with my son playing football. Another news, Fortnite Monopoly will be coming out because everybody knows you just can't get enough of it playing Fortnite online. You also have to play an analog version of it too. And of course it has to be Monopoly. Beyond that, Hasbro grabbed the rights to Fortnite toys and stuff, so it was only a matter of time before this happened. Pandemic, Fall of Rome. This is a new Pandemic. Now, I played the original Pandemic quite a bit. It was okay game. I've never really gotten too big into the Pandemic, but man, is it popular. But Fall of Rome intrigues me because it's taking a little bit of the fight and emergency and turning it into a, dare I say, historic, more of a warlike theme, kind of ish. In some way, it reminds me, is this every man's Pendragon coin game? We'll find out. And with that, let's get to my question of the week. So a while back, I did a question of the week on how much I would pay for a board game. And I said that with one exception, Gloomhaven, I would generally try to keep it in the $50 range. But what about now? It's been a while. It's been well over a year. And is that still true? Would I still just pay that for a board game? Well, it turns out my past version of me might have been correct, but now, no, I actually think I'm paying a little bit more in some ways, but paying a little bit less than others. There are always good deals, like crazy good deals on games. You're like, how could this possibly be this inexpensive? The Tiny Epic series, for example, are smaller packed games that are about $20, but they come just really, really tons of stuff. SEAL Team 6, $45. And yet the thing is packed with great components and great gameplay. But there are a lot of new games coming that, as I think they're getting more and more polished with their components, and they're getting a lot more grandiose with the vision of the gameplay itself, that, yeah, I'm starting to realize that in the last couple of years I have paid upwards of $80 to $100 for a game, with the caveat that that game absolutely has to be something I will either enjoy $100 worth by setting it up and learning it and playing it, or that I will just play the snot out of it. And that is actually true. The other thing is, a lot of like when you add up expansions for games, you'll find that you're paying a lot more than you think you are too. But in general, I hope that the trend doesn't continue upward, where we're taking it like every Kickstarter game has to start at $75. But it is true that in this day and age, I tend to find myself paying a little bit more. Whether that's a good thing or not, obviously I'll pay as little as possible for anything I can pay for. I fiscally have no pride, but for certain ones, and especially ones where they're limited release, but I'm like, I really want it anyway. Western Legends is an example. I'm always on the lookout for good Western game themes. I bought a lot of Western board games, and a lot of them are like, meh. You're okay. Western Legends looks to be a game that will knock my socks off. I've heard nothing but good, so I bit the bullet and paid the price for it. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to buy other games. So anyway, that's the question. Yeah, I would pay more for a board game now than I would pay back then. Others? Let me know. And with that, let's get to my 3 games of the week. First game is Masters of the Galaxy. Now, This one I passed by many times. It just doesn't look that interesting to me. I don't like the art looking at it right now. I'm not a big fan of it. It looks kind of cheesy and retro, but not in a fun retro way. So I passed this one on. But then I realized it was from Ares, and it was a 4X space game using a bag building concept. And I like War of the Ring, I like Conan, I like Hunt for the Ring. So I like the things that this company has put out. And so I decided that, well, because it was on sale, that I'd give it a whirl. And I am going to try this out. I have read the rules, and I'm like feeling a little better about my purchase, because I think that it seems to take the bag building and not make it quite as disastrous as I could see a 4X space building bag building game. We'll find out, though. Master of the Galaxy. Next, we have a game, also not generally in my vein of, sure, I can see Tim playing that. Maiden's Quest. This is a 1 to 2 player game, strangely enough, from the guy that did one of my favorite trick-taking games of last year, Tournament of Camelot. He has some really strange, sort of like obtuse, orthogonal ways to go about gameplay with some mechanisms you generally don't see. This is no exception. You have cards you rotate and flip over, etc. It's meant to be played with one hand. But it's all about this maiden who's like, I'm done being helpless. I'm going to go escape this place myself. And if y'all want to come with me, great. If not, well, I'm taking everything I can and I'm going to go MacGyver on all of you. And that's kind of the basic premise. Is it any good? Well, we'll find out. Either I'll do a review on it, or I'll follow up and say whether I liked it or whether I put it in the snooze box. And finally, I love Carson City, the card game, speaking of Westerns. So, sorry, I love Carson City, the board game. I've had it for years. I haven't played it in a while. It really shines more with more players, in my opinion. Carson City, the card game, is a 1 to 6 player experience where you are overlapping cards in kind of a strange way to build your city out. I don't know. We'll find out. Once again, these aren't reviews. These are just 3 games. So we will find out what happens in the next time on 3 games of the week, whether I like these or not. And with that, let's get to Tim's Tantrum. Get off my land. Okay, this is not so much a tantrum more than it's just a suspicion, because I'm generally suspicious about everything. Even my enthusiasm is guarded behind walls and moats of skeptical alligators. But whenever I see a campaign or Kickstarter or something where someone is building a game, and then I see solo mode as a stretch goal, I have to be suspicious. Because to me, solo as a stretch goal just comes off saying, if we have time, we'll try and figure out a way to make a one-player version of it. And that is so different than someone who goes in going, systemically, how can we create this experience that's going to cover 1 player up to N players? And so I do remain suspicious of that. It reminds me of times as a video game developer, like years and years ago, when we'd be evaluating companies or different games or whatever and stuff, or people coming in pitching projects, and they would come up with this, and they'd be in development, and like they'd be making this great solo game, and it would be like, you know, all the levels and missions and and then they would say that one phrase, and then if we have time, we'll make it multiplayer. And that was always a warning, because you're like, you aren't fundamentally preparing this to be, well, no, we're going to do the single player, and then we'll put the multiplayer in after that. That's when you know you're in danger. And I rarely, if ever, saw that succeed. So it's kind of a flip-flop. But in this case, it's like, how much thought and attention did you give to solo? Now, granted, it could be that they're just saying, we do have a solo mode. We're trying to just make something to bump people up to buy our game. We really know it's good for solo, but we're just going to add it as a stretch goal, as some way to kind of fictitiously add more. Maybe, I don't know. But maybe not. Maybe I'm too suspicious. Maybe there is a good way to, like, pigeonhole or ramrod in a solo mode. Or conversely, maybe there already is a built-in solo mode on games, but I remain skeptical. There have been several Kickstarters that I backed, where solo was being put in afterwards, and I remain dubious as to whether they're going to be a really rich experience, or they're going to be let's just make a score table, play two-handed, Anyway, that's it for this week. And we will see you next time on Harebrained Games.